Hi guys, and welcome back to the Toffee Blues, and welcome to another live stream. It's going to be another player focus video or live stream today, and we're going to be talking about Lucas Digne. If you joined us last week for the player focus episode where we talked about Jordan Pickford, you'll know sort of around about what this series is about. Me and Jordan sit down, we have a little bit of a talk about the player. Last week it was Jordan Pickford, and this week it's Lucas Digne, who obviously started his Everton career fantastically last season. He come in, you know, there was a lot of pressure, I think, on him from Evertonians. He mightn't have felt it, he mightn't have known it, but there was a lot of pressure I felt from Evertonians because obviously he was coming in and he was being that replacement for Leighton Baines. He was being that player that we were, you know, bringing in for the long run, and he stepped in and he was absolutely fantastic throughout the entirety of last season. I think there was a lot of points where a lot of us were saying, you know, he's literally the perfect replacement for Leighton Baines. He's like a prime Leighton Baines. He hasn't as good a season this season. I want to talk about it later on in the stream as to why I think he might have struggled a little bit this season, but you know, I suppose generally my overall consensus, just personally first, I like Lucas Digne. I really do like Lucas Digne. I think don't get me wrong, I think he's struggled this season, and I think there's a lot of reasons as to why he's struggled. I know he's had a personal tragedy in his life. I believe his grandfather passed. And, you know, obviously the team's changed, a lot's changed at the football club. He's only been here 2 years. I was sitting thinking about it last night when I was making some notes, and I thought this would only be Marco Silva's second season in a job. Richarlison's only been here a year and a half or a season and a half. Lucas Digne's only been here a season and a half. So as he settled into that Everton team last season under Marco Silva, and he settled into playing left back with Richarlison playing sort of in front of him, and they sort of made that partnership and gained that partnership, it all sort of got through under the bus a little bit in the second season because obviously there was a change of manager, everything changed. He's had many a player play on the left hand side now, from Richarlison, Alex Iwobi, Bernard, and I think a part of the reason as to why he struggled personally for me is because he hasn't been able to quite get that connection. Obviously we've seen it throughout the years. Baines and Pienaar had a fantastic connection. The Richarlison and Digne had a fantastic connection last season, but because obviously Richarlison's moved into the central role, and even before that he was playing on the right hand side, I don't think Lucas Digne's had a solid partner to play consistently alongside him on that left hand side, and I do think that's part of the reason as to why he struggled. So I just suppose generally, as a general point, how do you feel about Lucas Digne, mate? Do you like him? Do you a little bit don't know yet?
No, I'm firmly in the like camp with you, mate. I do. I'm a fan of him. You know, like you said, just Marcel Brands couldn't have found a perfect replacement, could he? When we first signed him, I was just like, oh my God, look, who is this player? You know, and he just fitted right in. And you know, yeah, like you said, it is a little bit. He has struggled a bit this season, and believe it or not, his stats are actually going towards being better this season. But yeah, I just thought I think he got Player of the Year, didn't he?
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm a big fan, mate. I think he is better when he's with Bernard, but it hasn't helped at all. Like you said, I think he's the only one who links up with him really well.
Yeah.
Richarlison hasn't really been in the wing this season at all, apart from the start. From what I remember, he's been up front most of it. So you know, it's you could say it's a little unfair on him there.
Yeah.
You know, with the link-up play and that.
Yeah, I agree. Go on.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, after a shaky start, though, I mean, the whole squad was a bit shaky, weren't they? But I think he got away with it a little bit because people were calling out the whole team when we were underperforming, and he was sort of getting away with it based on last year.
Yeah.
But I think he was slightly underperforming like the rest of the team. But since Ancelotti's come in, I think he's starting to go up a level again.
Yeah.
I think he looks a bit more interested, to be honest.
No, I agree, and there was that worry, I think, this season, obviously, after him having such a fantastic season last season, and you know, you said it there, he come in, and he wasn't just prime Leighton Baines because he could do the defensive work, but going forward, he was creating, he was putting the ball into the box. I've got a stats here from last season, 4 goals and 5 assists in 37 games, so he was, you know, he was assisting, he was helping out his teammate, but also his goals, he was scoring Leighton Baines-esque goals, free kicks from 30 yards where no other player in the club could hit it, you know, the way he could hit it. You know, the goal against Manchester United is still technically one of the best goals I've seen at Goodison Park. To hit that ball as cleanly as he did, as accurate as he did, there's not many players in our team with that quality, and you don't lose that quality. That quality doesn't just go away overnight, and I agree with you, while the team was underperforming, and you know, there was a lot of players that were getting highlighted, Jordan, that I think Lucas Digne did slip under the carpet a little bit and maybe did get away with it. But I think I have seen a few fans saying that they're still a little bit iffy on him. I think his first season set an expectation for Evertonians, and it's, obviously it's massively positive, and it's great when a player comes in and hits the ground running straight away. And we knew Lucas Digne was a quality left back before we signed him. He's played for some of the best football teams around the world. He's played for your Barcelonas, your PSGs, your Romas. You don't play for clubs like that unless you've got real talent. Playing for Barcelona and not getting a look in the first team isn't anything to be ashamed of. Going to Barcelona in the first place obviously says something about your playing style, and he come in and he hit the ground running better than I think anyone could have expected. He literally looked like Marcel Brands, like you said, had gone there and gone, here's the perfect replacement for Leighton Baines, and he's going to slot in. And I do think that part of the reason as to why he struggled, like we said before, is because he hasn't had the consistent partner on the left, as well as the fact that the whole team, I think overall this season it was just it's just not as good, if lack for a better word, as it was last season. I know last season was inconsistent and there were spells where we were poor, but there was a massive spell towards the end of the season where we had quite a lot of consistency and consistent good performances, whereas this season it's again been very roller coaster. It's been very up and down, but it's been heightened this season because there was calls for Marco Silva to be sacked. Obviously, when things weren't going right in the first season, Marco Silva's first season, we were still all very much under the impression of, okay, he's a new manager, he's got a new set of players, give him time. So there was that sort of, there was that agreement, if you like, with the fans and the players, is that they can sort of, they're not allowed to make mistakes, but it's passed off a little bit more. Than obviously in the second season it became a lot more serious, and Marco Silva ultimately left the club, Duncan Ferguson come in, Ancelotti come in, and it's a big change when you have a manager change. It's a big change for players because they start playing next to other players, they start having to adopt different positions, and I'm not gonna lie, there has been times this season where I've been a little bit disappointed in Lucas Digne. Like you said there, the stats have been massively on the up though. So from last season, obviously 4 goals, 5 assists in 37 games. This season so far, he's only got 1 goal, but he's got 6 assists. So he's already beat his assists from last season in 30 games. No Premier League goals. And I think the goals are what some fans are sort of clocking on to, as to the fact that he hasn't had a good season, because we're not seeing him hit a free kick from 40 yards and it flying the top in. We're not seeing him, to do like what he done against Manchester United, where it's fallen to him on the edge of the box and he scored, and we're not seeing that an awful lot. And maybe that's what is attracting fans to thinking he's not, playing as well, which ultimately he hasn't been defensively as well. He hasn't been great at times this season. But I just think that's a key point, obviously, and we've gone from sort of a lot of Evertonians talking about, him being a prime Leighton Baines-esque and a fantastic Leighton Baines replacement, to almost like, at times this season, certainly in recent weeks and months, obviously before the lockdown, there was some fans calling for Leighton Baines to come back into the team. There was some fans calling for Leighton Baines to start again regular football, especially after the game against Leicester in the Cup, where Leighton Baines scored that worldie. But I do agree. I think Lucas Digne's one of them players where if you had him for 10 seasons, he'd maybe have 1 or 2 bad seasons. And unfortunately, his bad seasons come at this point, but there's been a lot of things to factor into that. Do you agree then? Do you think the lack of consistent left winger is the biggest thing that he struggled with this season? What would you say the biggest thing he struggled with in the squad this season, and why he hasn't quite got to the form that we seen last season?
Well, you could put it down to a few things, like you said, the left-hand side, no one helping him out, but there's been a couple of occasions this season where defensively it's got really nothing to do with the winger when he's been rinsed by, I think Traore was it at Wolves? Harvey Elliott even gave him a tough time in the derby, you know what I mean? And it just might be a case of second season syndrome, I don't know. I remember Jelavic coming in at the ground running. It was one of the best strikers I'd seen at Everton in a long time, and next minute he just couldn't do it, could he? I don't know, maybe he thinks there could be a lot of expectation on him, like, I've got to redo what I've done last year. They are human after all, these players, aren't they?
Exactly.
But yeah, I don't know, mate. It's an hard one to put your finger on. But like I said, since Ancelotti's come in, he has done a little bit better. But I remember he was getting linked, weren't he, with, was it Lille after him?
Yeah.
And I remember at one point, mate, I was just like, I don't even care if you go, because I was that angry with the team at the time. I think it was after the derby, and I just thought, you haven't done much this season anyway. Go ahead, go. And he just didn't look like he wanted to be here. But there were reports going around that he was more happier than when Carlo come in, and I think he has performed a little bit better since he's come in. But I think next season might be the defining season for him because he probably had a good one, an average one. So next year we'll probably see what he is all about overall. But I still wouldn't put it past him leaving here, to be honest, because like you said, he's been at them clubs. I think he's played more games for us than any of them.
Yeah.
And
it's been a lot tougher for him at Everton.
Yeah. He's a little bit of a journeyman. Because he's been at that many clubs. Yeah. I think it's 4 years he's been at 4 clubs, or 5 years at 4 clubs. So I still wouldn't be surprised if he left. But yeah, if he does stay, it'll be next year's the defining one for him, and hopefully the whole squad are playing better, and it'll bring out the best in him as well, because it just weren't helping him at the start of the year when everyone was underperforming. You can't, unless you're an unbelievable player, you can't exactly drag the whole team, can you?
Yeah, I agree. And like you mentioned there, being at so many clubs, and he's not young, he's not old, but being at 4 clubs in 4 years, it does sort of question as to whether he's looking at that club to settle, and that adds a little bit of worry, I think, to when we've seen him underperform this season. We're sort of thinking, well, is he not settled at Everton, and are we now going to be looking at a player that wants to leave the football club to go and find somewhere else where he may or may not settle? I agree. I agree, spot on. And I think it's always tough for any player when it's coming towards the end of a managerial reign. And we all knew for months and months and months that Marco Silva, needed to leave the football club after the Norwich game. I can't believe he wasn't sacked. Obviously, he was ultimately sacked after the Merseyside derby. But for me, we're going back at least 6 weeks before that Norwich game, I thought this man isn't the right man for the job. And like I said, it's always difficult when, obviously the fans can see this is going to end at some point. It's just, it's a case of when and not if.
Players must
exactly, the players must be, the players will be thinking the same thing. And ultimately as well, Lucas Digne come in as a Marco Silva player, and there's one thing that I think pretty much all of the players that Marco Silva brought in that first season and in his second season arguably as well, is that they all spoke very, very highly of him when he come in. Richarlison spoke of him. I think he quoted saying he was like his dad in football at one point. Lucas Digne said that he wasn't coming anywhere near Everton. He didn't want to leave Barcelona. He wasn't looking for a move whatsoever. And he spoke to Marco Silva on the phone, and then he wanted to come straight away. So you do have to also think is that when a player who very clearly had a good relationship with the manager and on a personal level as well, really respected them and really, liked them as a person, because ultimately I don't think there was any Everton player in that squad that, disliked Marco Silva as a person. I just think they all felt like we did as fans, that if we're going to be a top flight team fighting for Champions League, etc., he isn't going to be the manager going forward. But again, you'd have to think about it on a personal level for them. This is a manager that's brought them into the football club, that's obviously had that connection straight away with him. If he can change his mind over the phone, there must have been some form of connection, and he can see with his eyes that this manager's career is going spiralling downwards quickly at this football club. So, it must have been nice to see, and obviously that works into the fact that he could have been playing better on the pitch as well as everybody else to stop that. But I just want to bring up one thing as well. John,
just before you do, Cam, just before that, I was just going to say on that, it mustn't help either when you've sort of believed in this little project going on, and you can see it fizzling out and thinking, has he sort of been lied to about it? Because, not lied to, but like, he was sold something and it didn't happen, and he knew it weren't going to happen, so it's probably got his head down. So yeah, I totally agree with you there. Like.
Yeah, spot on, and I agree. And obviously, like, for a player coming from the type of clubs like your Barcelonas, your Romas, he's not coming just to sit around them and be in a team that's going to be bouncing around the middle of the park. He will have ambition, and the reason why he'd have left those clubs is because he wasn't getting enough game time. So I think you made a great point there. Whether he feels like he's being sort of let down by the manager or by the club, and he's just feeling a little bit low about that. But, like we said, obviously you have to think about, the player in that situation. I also want to bring up, I believe he had a couple of personal tragedies, or at least one personal tragedy throughout this season, from the start to where we are now. John says it in the comments. John Maguire says, alright, Cam, alright, John. He said, I also think that his granddad passed away around Christmas time, or his form dropped around Christmas time when his granddad passes away. And I actually remember this because He'd had a sort of series of poor performances for 4 or 5 weeks, and then he put in quite a decent performance, and I think we won. And I think it was the first time we'd won in a few weeks, and he come out after it and he said, something along the lines of, that one was for you, Grandad. It's been a tough month for our family, and that win was dedicated to you, or something with a sad face. And I thought, I respect that, because he's come out and he's done that when all the fans are in a good mood and when we're coming off the back of a win, and he's not come out and done it as almost like an excuse. But you mentioned there, he's a human being, and you know, I don't know, I'm sure you don't know, we're not going to know as a fan base how close Lucas Digne was to his granddad, but I know for me, if I'd have lost a grandparent, I probably wouldn't be able to go out and play footy as normal as I usually would, because it does have an effect on you. These football players, even though they're on silly wages, even though they're paid, you know, more than what they should be paid, arguably, they're still human beings and they've still got emotion. He also had a child as well midway through this season, which I can imagine is plenty of emotion as well. So do you think that that's obviously had a detrimental effect on his form? Like you mentioned there was times this season where he just didn't look happy. Maybe that was because of what was going on in the background and he wasn't prioritising football, which to an extent you can't really you can't really blame him for, can you?
Yeah, to be honest, Cam, I thought I sort of put it down to the fact that, like, I didn't know that, to be honest. Yeah. I've just learned that now, to be honest.
I'm sure he come out and put something on social media about it. I'm pretty sure he did.
Yeah, I just heard stories that his girlfriend was always on Instagram eating the weather, but I didn't know about that, to be honest. So yeah, obviously that is going to have a massive effect on your game. I mean, it could either raise it or bring it right down, one or the way or the other. It depends on what type of person you are, I suppose. But yeah, like I said, and like you've just brought it back up, he is a human being, isn't he? So yeah, it could have had a bad effect, mate, but I didn't even know that, to be honest. And certainly, if it happened to me, I'd probably be down in the dumps. Like, I'm lucky to still have my grandparents, but yeah, that could be a massive effect, mate. I didn't even know that, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly, and you know, and a lot of people wouldn't have known that because he didn't publicise it. It wasn't all over the media. He just put, you know, a subtle sort of post on Instagram, I think, after, like I said, after we'd won a game. He might have even, you know, got an assist in the game or played really, really well, and he put a subtle post up, and I know at the time, obviously I was made up because Everton had won for the first time in something like fucking 3 weeks or something like that, and would actually put in a decent performance. But I remember looking at it thinking, that does explain a lot. That, and I knew he wouldn't want to come out and say it after we'd lost, because you would get people who just think you're just making an excuse and it's not good enough. But I think
Tony is at the best of times when they're angry. You just,
that's it.
It's not even.
That's it. And he's late. That's it. He wouldn't come out. And like I said, I had a lot of respect for him for doing that, because obviously it's something that's been playing on his mind. Like you said, I'm the same as you. It will massively play on my mind. I couldn't just go out and play footy like I'd usually played. If something like that happened, and I think it's ultimately it's a combination of everything, really. It's, you know, a close death in the family. It's the birth of a new child as well, which can be a very, you know, emotional time, obviously for different reasons, but also a very tough time as well. It's the fact,
the whole simple thing to go with it as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's the fact that he's looking at a manager who he's very clearly got a personal connection with, whose career at the football club's fading away slowly but surely, and it's becoming quite evident that he's not going to be here for the long term. You know, he's playing with different partners week in, week out. So I think it's all just a combination of things that has affected his form this season. And like we said at the start, I really, really, really like Lucas Digne. I really do. And I think Lucas Digne could, if he gets that consistency up, be as good, if not very, very close to as good of a left back as Leighton Baines has been for Everton, because he's got that sheer quality that you don't see. And what you have to ask yourself, if you're watching this video, or if we get to the summer transfer window and you think, I'll probably sell Lucas Digne, who would you bring in? Who would you bring in that ultimately can do the defensive job, but also I think about this, and I say it every time I think about it. I don't think we've got a player in our football club. I think there's probably 2 players at the club that can hit a ball as cleanly as we've seen Lucas Digne do, and I think it's Digne and Sigurdsson. And I don't think Sigurdsson's going to have a long-term future at the football club, because I just think he's getting to that age now where we're going to look to move on and make some form of money on him. And I think, you know, I've seen Lucas Digne hit free kicks that I know full well no other Everton player to be able to hit as cleanly as he's done, and score. The goal against Manchester United, if that was on the foot of any other Everton player, would it have gone in as cleanly as it did? I don't know. And I just look back to last season and I think, right, okay, it was his first season and he's only been here for, a year and a half. And like you said, he's had one really good season, he's had one average season. So next season probably is going to be the real sort of the defining moment in his Everton career. But I look at that last season and I think he wasn't just okay last season, he was fucking fantastic. He was absolutely brilliant for like 99% of the season. He was providing going forward. He was scoring goals. He was assisting. I remember the Burnley game where he scored that free kick. Wasn't he a period of 2 games where he scored a free kick consistently, or I think he scored in the Burnley game and he scored after it or before it. But I just
2 in the Burnley game, didn't he?
He scored 2 in the Burnley game, yeah, 2 free.
I think he banged the free kick in and then scored like a long ranger. Yeah,
he did. He rolled out to him on the edge of the box, didn't he? And he hit it. And I just think that there's too much quality there for us to even talk about letting go. And like we mentioned in last week's video when we spoke about Jordan Pickford, there's far too many positions in this team that we should be looking at before we look at replacing somebody like a Lucas Digne or a Jordan Pickford. If there was a question, would there be anyone that you'd potentially throw in the hat if the decision was made?
Before you mentioned it, I was going to say, like what you've just said then, it'd be one of the last positions I'd be looking at replacing, because along with Pickford, like we said last week, there's other areas that need replacing before we even look at that. And like you said, if he gets back to what he is last year, he's one of the best left backs in the league.
Yeah, I agree.
On his day, the best at times. So, and talking about people that bring in, it's a really hard one, because I know for a fact from last year there's no one I would have replaced him with.
Yeah, I agree.
So if he plays with the way he was last year, maybe Leighton Baines could replace him.
That's it.
But I like is it Chilwell from Leicester? But sadly, times have sort of changed a little bit now. I don't think he'd come here, because Leicester are probably going to get Champions League, and it's a sad state of affairs when we can't sign players from Leicester. No disrespect to Leicester, but they've come a long way now. So, but yeah, he's the only one I could really think of that I'd like to put in that position, who I think would just slot straight in there. But like I said, it's a lose-lose. We're not going to get him, are we? And just quickly going on some of the goals he scored. Was it against Lincoln?
Yeah, that was the season, wasn't it?
Yeah. What a free kick. One of the best free kicks I've ever seen for Everton. I couldn't believe it. It was absolutely magic. I think the commentator said that is magical, actually.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. If he could add a few more goals, that would be a big bonus as well. But going who would bring in, I haven't got many names in that at me, to be honest. Have you got anyone?
No, I agree. Obviously, Chilwell's a very, very good left back, and I do agree with you. I think Chilwell's going to be looking at staying at Leicester or going to somebody with a bigger stature, whether it be a Man City or somebody where he's guaranteed top 4 football every year, sort of a Chelsea or a Tottenham or somebody like that. But I honestly don't think there's many better left-backs in the Premier League than Lucas Digne. I really, really don't. And he struggled this season, and like you said, you could put it down to a number of things, or you could just simply put it down to the fact he hasn't had a good season. Sometimes players don't have good seasons. It's taken Dominic Calvert-Lewin 3 seasons to have a really, really good season. And there's a lot of cause to sell Dominic Calvert-Lewin in the past 3 years. So sometimes players just have an off season, and like you said, when you've got a lot of things that are going on in the team, and I think that's why I think we've got somebody really, really, really special, and I personally think world class in Richarlison, because he lost a manager left the football club who Richarlison deemed as his father in football, and he just stepped it up. Carlo Ancelotti come in, he just stepped it up. I put a brief point, it's a little bit off topic, so I apologise, but I put just when I was writing the notes, I just put brief point, Richie is boss, because I just wanted to say how boss Richarlison is. He put a picture up on Twitter today of him and Ancelotti with the caption "Ole Ole." It's boss, innit? And you look at that and you think that's an example of a player that has been in that same situation as Dean, Mina, Gomez, where they've a manager who will have promised them an awful lot at the football club, who obviously they had a deep connection with. Certainly Richarlison has left the football club, and he has stepped his game up massively, and he's not. And there was a little bit of a worry just briefly on Richarlison, I think, when Silva left, is he now going to sort of think, I don't really want to be here because I've not got the guidance that I was looking for, so I'm going to leave. But he hasn't. He stepped it up and he's took it to another level. But just back on Dean, because he is the focus of the video. I really don't think there's many better left backs in the Premier League. I honestly think, you mentioned Chilwell, I think he's a good player. The other fella across the park, who shall not be named, I think obviously is up there as well. But I think when you look past them two, I really don't see a left back in the Premier League that's better than Lucas Digne, even after he's had a little bit of a rocky season, and that's because I think of how good his first season was. And like you mentioned there, since Ancelotti's come in, he has got a lot better. 6 assists this season, which a lot of fans probably won't have known or would have just let pass because he hasn't scored the goals.
I couldn't believe it when I seen that stat that he got more than last year, to be honest.
Exactly. And I was looking at it before and I thought, well, I didn't know that. I thought, I knew he hadn't scored many, but I didn't think he'd assisted an awful lot. But I suppose, this season's been very much a season where as soon as the ball goes in the back of the net for Everton, we don't really care how it's gone in the back of the net, do we? Yeah. So it's just ecstatic because we've scored. But no, I agree. I'd certainly be keeping him, definitely. I wouldn't be selling him. Unless the player, like we mentioned before, turns round and says something like, I'm not comfortable or I don't want to be here, then obviously it's a massively different situation. You've got an unhappy player on your hands. But as long as Lucas Digne's happy at Everton Football Club, I'm happy with Lucas Digne.
I think he has put a few tweets up lately, Dean, saying he's missing the football with Everton, but it's all pictures of him in the Everton. So maybe that was just a little phase, or with the Lille connection and all that. I think that might have just gone now. Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if he did leave, but it's more. I think he will stay. Yeah. But like you said, I was looking up, like when you're talking about the best left backs in the league, I was actually looking up the left backs before, and I was only thinking the Liverpool left back. Like you said, we won't name him, but he's up there with him. On the day, there isn't many better left backs in the Prem. No. I used to really like that Alonso for Chelsea, but like he's not as good as what he was. No, when I was looking him up, there was just Mendy, maybe, is it? But like he's not in the France squad for nothing, mate. No. I looked up the France games, the last few they've had, and I think he's featured in the last 2 or 3 and started one and come on. So he's not there for nothing, is he? In the world champions, aren't he? So
yeah, exactly spot on. And like you mentioned with the Lille links there, I think the way I see journalists at the moment, and it's just my opinion, but I really see, especially at this time, they're like savages, and as soon as a player's having a little bit of form, they find a situation to dive on straight away. And they'll have known at that point when Lucas Digne was feeling a little bit down and he was in a little bit of a run of form, let's link him here with a move back to his home boyhood club where he started his career and where he grew up and where he obviously has a lot of love and admiration to. Let's link him there, even if it's just to try and mess with his head a little bit. And I think that's probably what we were looking at with that situation. And again, I wouldn't be surprised if they do similar with Jordan Pickford at one point, in the future. But well, if it was up to them journalists, he'd be playing at bloody Spurs now because he was going there in the summer, weren't he? Exactly. And it's mad how it's here. And you'll see a lot of made up transfer rumours. There's been far too many over the past 2 or 3 weeks that I've looked at and just gone, Jesus Christ. I mean, when I first heard about Mbappe and Newcastle being linked, I laughed. And then I read about 4 articles trying to blag how it was realistic, and I was just sitting there with my head in my hands going, how do people make money off how do people believe the stuff that comes out of some of these journalists? SXSQOX says, hi lads, hi. I think Lucas Digne will come good, lads. The more we see a regular winger ahead of him, I think we will see the best out of him. And it's a fantastic point. If you're enjoying the stream, by the way, please do hit the like button. It only takes a second. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're new. It's a good point because, we mentioned when he plays with Bernard, he's a better player, or he seems to perform better. When Leighton Baines play with Pienaar, they are one of the best connections I've seen ever at Everton. I think it's a really the
best I ever seen. Sorry to interrupt.
No, I was just going to say, I think it's a really good point. I think if you've got 2 consistent players playing on the same wing, they can build that relationship up.
Well, the best I ever seen Leighton Baines in them couple of years was when he was playing with Pienaar. Yeah. That was the best. He was prime Baines there, and he was still amazing for all the other years. But that was the best I've seen him because he had Pienaar with him, and they were just telepathic, weren't they?
Exactly.
But there is glimpses of that with Dean and Bernard.
That is spot on, I agree, and Lucas Digne played a lot of the first season with Richarlison over on the left, and I'm not suggesting Richarlison goes back over there because I think he's a centre forward and he's done very, very well there. But my point is he had that consistent player that he knew every week was going to be ahead of him, and you also have to, without delving too deep into it, you also have to think about when the players are training, and Lucas Digne's training, and he's thinking, right, I know Bernard's going to be ahead of me every single week, so I can focus on playing balls to Bernard, or I can watch Bernard and see when he receives the ball, where does he go, to make sure that I can then go behind him or go in front of him or overlap. Whereas if you're Lucas Digne and you play with Bernard one week and then you're told halfway through the week you're going to be playing with a Iwobi, it's tough to, to do your research and to find that connection. And like I said, if Carlo Ancelotti come in and said, right, Dean, you and Bernard are playing together, as long as fitness stays okay and suspension stays okay, you're playing together from the start of next season to Christmas, we'll see a fantastic connection between the two of them, because they'll both be able to watch each other, learn how each other play, and build that connection with each other. So I think that's a fantastic.
He's got Sigurdsson after time as well.
Well, exactly, yeah. We've seen Sigurdsson play over there, and basically... That's basically Dean playing on his own, isn't it, really? Doing two jobs. One of our best players, I agree, spot on. And Bill Point Cam, can't think of any other Prem left backs or others that I would take over him. John says, yeah, I agree. Like we said there, there's the lad over the park who shall be mentioned, but other than that, I don't think there's a better left back in the country.
Totally agree.
I really don't. Anyway, so that's going to do it for this episode of Player Focus. If you've enjoyed, please do hit that like button. It does only take a second. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well, and leave go and follow the Twitter and all of the social medias and everything, etc. in the description. Massive thanks to Jordan for coming on once again.
Thanks for letting me come on, mate. I enjoyed it.
No, of course. And I assume we'll be doing more of these in the future, so maybe check back, whether it be next week or in a couple of weeks, and we'll probably be doing another one focusing on another player. But overall, just to summarise very, very quickly, Lucas Digne, I think's boss. He's had a bit of a dodgy season, but how many players in Everton's history have had dodgy seasons and then gone on to be absolutely world beaters? So I'd definitely be keeping him. No doubt about it. As long as he wants to be at Everton Football Club, I think he's one of the best left backs for me in Europe on his day. Definitely in the Premier League. Do you agree? Oh,
that basically said me somebody for him there, mate.
There you go. Lucas Digne, boss. Let us know your thoughts on it in the comment section down below. Of course, if you're watching as a YouTube video, if you're watching in the live comments, a big thanks for getting involved. Just before we go, Lynn says he's suffering because no left foot defender to pass to him. Maybe as well. It's a good point. He hasn't got a proper left-sided defender, which you'd probably think stays off the mat. It doesn't really matter much in football, but it does. It really does. That left and right centre back matters a lot. Yeah,
when he goes forward, someone just slots in.
Exactly. It's natural, like this Dan used to do. This Dan used to just slot over, cover Leighton Baines, and Baines had known that he had that leeway going forward, because he had somebody who was a massive brick shit house in Sylvain Distin, and who also had quite a lot of pace in 90% of his Everton career, so it gave Baines that confidence, whereas Dean now mightn't have that confidence to go forward, because he might be thinking, am I going to be covered? And then ultimately, if he's not covered, he's getting the blame, basically, if we lose an attack down that left hand side or the opposition's right hand side. Anyway, that's going to do it for today. Please leave a like if you've enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and yeah, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you soon.
See you later.